There's this notion in the Quran about making someone feel worthless, making someone feel not worthy of even a conversation, making someone feel little, to make someone feel little. And actually, the concept of being little and being humiliated are associated with each other. So, saghar in the Quran, which comes from the word saghir is small, saghar is actually humiliation. And when the devil was being removed from the company of Allah and the angels and all of that, when he was being expelled, Allah told him, "Innaka minas saghirin," you are from those that are small. In other words, you're humiliated and you're insignificant. You're being made insignificant. Now, how do you make somebody feel small? You and I can be in a difficult conversation or somebody says something we didn't want to hear, or you hear something outrageous and you want to give a response and you decide not to give a response. You decide to just stay quiet, right? That's a good thing. Instead of being impulsive and exploding on somebody and putting them in their place, or giving them a zinger right back. Oh yeah, if you can say that, I can say 10 more things to you, or I can raise my voice. We've already studied in the Quran, that's actually coming to lower your voice, right? So, and a'rid anil jahilin, ignore people that are being outrageous. That's there too. But being silent when somebody's being erratic, when somebody's being outrageous, that's something else. This ayah is about something else. This ayah can also apply in us doing something wrong. When somebody's talking to you, one way you can avoid dealing with something is somebody comes and talks to you, "Hey, I need to talk to you about what happened last week. Or I need to bring up that issue with you." And you say, "I don't have time for this. Don't bring it up. No, I'm not going to deal with it. Don't waste my time." "Oh, not that again." Or one way or the other, you avoid the subject by not dealing with it at all. And that's another kind of turning your cheek. And this could be also done by, "Hey, I need to talk to you," no response. "I need you to tell me what's going on," no response. And what they call the silent treatment to somebody. So you can be, driving together and you're asking, your parent, or a parent is asking child, or siblings are asking each other, "Hey, so how was your day?" No answer. "What's going on?" No answer. Complete silence. And when you give somebody complete silence, in their mind, why are they ignoring me? Why aren't they answering anything I'm saying? Are they angry with me? Did I do something wrong? Are they, upset with me? Are they just ignoring me because I don't think I'm worth? There's all kinds of negative thoughts that come out, don't they? The point being, if you don't make yourself clear and you think that you're silent, and your silence could be for good reasons. "Oh, I was silent because I was thinking about something. I was lost in thought. I was distracted." Could be something innocent. Or "I was silent because I was just thinking of how to respond and I couldn't come up with an answer quickly." Or "I couldn't respond because, in fact, I was angry and I was thinking the wrong thing, so I wanted to calm down before I answered." You can do that later, but in the moment when you ignore somebody and not respond to them, it's better for you and I to be straightforward in our speech and say, "Hey, I don't want to I can't respond right now. I'm not feeling okay. Or I don't think my response is going to be healthy at this moment, but we can talk about this a little later." And if you have in family those kinds of situations, it's on me and on you when somebody says that to us to say, "I understand, we'll talk about it later." Instead of, "What do you mean you can't talk about it right now?" The person's already overwhelmed. We poke at them some more until they explode. Let them be. Let them be. But if you and I start just ignoring a person completely, they're just not even saying that I need space, not even saying that I need to think about it, not even saying I'm a little bit upset right now, let me just calm down, or whatever. If you need to say something, just say it. Or if you say, "I don't have a response at the moment," or "I don't want to talk about this at the moment," that's okay. But at least you gave a dignified response. Silence on its own and just completely ignoring someone is not a dignified response. It's actually an arrogant response. Whether you're being arrogant or not, it will be received as arrogance by somebody else. It'll be received as, "I'm not worthy of a response. You think I'm worthless." And that's how it will be perceived. And that can become a form of arrogance. So it's not just about, "Well, I didn't mean that, so it's okay." It's not just about what you and I mean. It's also about the effect on somebody else's feelings. You see? So it's not always just about intentions. It's also sometimes about unintended consequences and turning our face away from somebody ignoring somebody or giving somebody the silent treatment, even if we may have justified reasons, can actually have unintended consequences. And they're being avoided. The intention has been removed from the equation just to get away from that habit. Just don't ignore somebody just for the purpose of ignoring them, whatever your reasons are. If you need to ignore them, if you need to take the space, even the Quran said it, إِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. They respond peacefully. Salama can be a hal there too, not just a maf'ul bihi. So it could be they respond saying peace, and it could be they respond in a peaceful manner and say, we don't want to, we don't want to engage in this conversation further. Or even when Allah says, when they walk into a company of conversation or a social gathering in which there is laghu, there's useless talk going on, or there's evil conversation going on. He says, marru kirama, they pass by dignified. What that means is they maintain their dignity and they also don't humiliate the people that are doing the wrong thing. They can maintain, a sanctimonious approach for themselves and for others. They can actually be dignified for themselves and others, even if they don't want to take part in something wrong. So we have to be mindful of that. But now we come to today's subject matter. What Allah connected, these concepts Allah connected with each other. The next advice He's giving His son in the same ayah is وَلَا تَمْشِ فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ كُلَّ مُخْتَالٍ فَخُورٍ. I'm going to dedicate a little bit of time in this khutbah to two words, marah and fakhur. Those are kind of a little bit difficult words, or rich words, and I don't think we should pass over them quickly. In fact, there are three words. There's marah, and there is, mukhtal, and there's fakhur. So we're kind of getting, mukhtal is easier, so we'll give a little bit less time to that. But marah and fakhur are more rare, and I think we need to really dig into what they mean and get the most out of this ayah. So let's talk about this word marah. What is Allah saying? He's saying, don't walk on the earth with marah. So I won't translate that word yet. Don't walk on the earth with marah. Right? Now, simple translations might say, don't walk on the earth with arrogance. Don't walk on the earth with pride. Don't walk on the earth with overconfidence. But as we'll see, there's much more to it than that. And that's not even the direct implication of the word. So المعنى المحوري تسيب الشيء اللطيف بقوة وخفة من أثناء ما يمسكه. The overall meaning of the words that come from this root, mim, ra, and ha, is actually when something exits something smoothly or easily. Easily exiting one thing from the other. So what are the examples of that? Mizadatun mariha la tumsikul ma. If it's a container, that's mariha from the same word. A marah container is one that water leaks out of it easily. So water now escapes easily from it. Okay? Wa ardun mimrah, an earth, a piece of land, that's mimrah, is when the plants come out of it very easily. Wa qawsun maruh, and a bow is called maruh from the same origin, when the arrow goes pretty quick out of it. It releases quickly out of that bow. Wa aynun mimrah, an eye is called mimrah when it's easy for a person, they cry easily. Like the waterworks come out quickly, right? So they say, shadda sayalanuha. Marihatil ayn, when the eye was having marah, it meant that the tears wouldn't stop. They just kept easily flowing and flowing and flowing. Marihatil ardu bin nabat akhrajathu. The earth, again, plants coming out quickly would be marihatil ard. And then, when the crop comes out and finally the grain pops open, easily releases, that's also called marah. So, and the most interesting use of it is actually used for a horse. So they say, farasun maruh. They say for a horse that is maruh, is that when it's grazing, like it's so hungry and hyperactive that it's grabbing some, grass from here, leaves from there, and running around like crazy because it's so hungry that it's erratic. You can think of it as a person being maruh when they're at a dinner table at iftar time, right? And they've been holding back. And as soon as iftar happens, they're like grabbing stuff, right? They're being maruh. Like, it's almost like they're quickly releasing their hands and grabbing at whatever they can. So the overall meaning of this word actually is to be impulsive, and to be very quick to act, to be very quick to do something, to have no sense of direction. So even that horse is described, يجري ويقفز ويضطرب هنا وهناك لا يقر ولا يسكن لما أحسه من شبع وقوة ونشاط. That the horse that is disturbed, it's moving around, it's not sitting still, it's very jittery because it's feeling hungry. When the father is telling his son, don't walk on the earth with marah, He's saying don't go hanging out or don't go outside engaging the world, because there's times where you're home, right? And then there's times you go out. You go out for work, you go out to hang out with friends, you go out to get food, whatever it is. Don't leave the home. Don't go anywhere and be impulsive. Oh, I want to do this. Oh, I want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And you have no purpose in what you're doing. You're just jumping from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. You know, a crazy example of that is sometimes there are different cultures in the world, right? So people come from very conservative societies to America. So somebody may have been raised in a very religious or very traditional, village, and they not even be Muslim. They may even be, Hindu or Christian or whatever, but very cultural, conservative background. Or think of a Muslim family and somebody who's raised in this joint family system, and there's a lot of respect for elders, and you watch your speech, and you watch the way you walk, and you watch the way you dress, and the way you sit, and the way you eat, and then they land in America, and they're a student, and they have a student visa, and they're going to the university, and the university has, parties on the weekend, and they've got fraternities, and they've got, hangouts, and the other students in the dorms are doing drugs, and everybody's got a relationship of one kind or the other, and all kinds of stuff. They're just bombarded with this stuff. And somebody can take those values that they were holding on to, but like that bow that releases the arrow without effort, they just let go of all of those values, and they got exposed to a new world. And they become marah. And this is a very powerful bit of advice, because we have kids, for example, we want to raise them in an Islamic environment, in a protected, sheltered environment. So whether you live in America, Australia, Lahore, Dhaka, it doesn't matter where you live. You want to protect your kids, and you want to make sure that they receive positive reinforcement about this is good for you, this is bad for you. Hey, what are you watching? Hey, where are you going online? Hey, let me see that. Who are you on the phone with? We're checking what they do. It's natural, right? So we're trying to create a sheltered environment for them wherever we may be. But you know what? This father realizes they're not going to stay home. These birds are going to fly off the nest. They're going to go outside. And when they go outside, all the things I protected them from, all the things that I didn't want them to just spill into, all the things I didn't want them to be exposed to, they're going to get hit with all of it all at the same time. They're just going to get sensory overload. There's going to be so much access to so much wrongdoing, and I'm not going to have any control over it. And he's saying in those moments, because now you have the ability, you have the appetite, you have the curiosity, you have the ability, you have the perception of freedom, right? And then, especially in that moment when somebody tries to give you good advice, you can turn your cheek. You can just, I don't want to hear this, right? So in that moment, you can become impulsive and not think twice about how you're violating others and yourself. And that is a form of arrogance. So by extension, it becomes arrogance. By extension, because arrogance is a lack of consideration for anybody else but yourself. وَلَا تَمْشِي فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا. The word marah here, Hassan Jabal added an insight of his own, and I really liked his insight in his lexicon. He said, التسيب من القيم والضوابط وعدم الالتزام بها عند وجود القوة والنعمة. He said this is when someone slips out, like the plant slips out of the earth, like the arrow slips out of the bow, like the water slips out of the container, right? Is when a person slips out of their value system. Is when someone leaks, they lose themselves. And the values that were holding them and containing them, they no longer commit themselves to them. It becomes too easy for them to let them go. It's too easy for them to let them go. And when does it let them go? He says, عند وجود القوة والنعمة. The moment they find power and blessings. What he means by that is when you're independent and you can do it, who's going to stop me? That's power. Blessings means you got money, you got strength, Allah has blessed you with the ability for, transportation, your appearance, whatever it may be. Now you've got these blessings, now I can do what I want with them. The father is telling his son, listen, you are going to feel powerful, capable of doing whatever you feel like, whatever impulse comes to you. And that's going to be a trial that you have. But it's interesting that he put these two seemingly unrelated bits of advice next to each other. He said, first, don't scoff at people, and then don't be impulsive, basically, right? What is the connection between these two? As we contemplate that, we could think about how when we become we come of age, we basically, the Urdu expression is par nikal aaye, right? A person, comes in their own and they kind of, the Urdu expression means they've sprouted wings, meaning they act like I'm not a kid anymore. You can't tell me what to do, right? I'm not a baby anymore, dad or mom. So they've become their own person. And in that moment, when they become their own person, it is when they become extremely averse, extremely hostile to any kind of advice. And actually, it is a time when, because you're hostile to any kind of advice, you develop this shell around you, which is constantly putting others down or dismissing others. The modern way of doing that captures so many young people around the world that are coming into adulthood is the word whatever. You whatever everything in the world. Anybody's giving you, whatever. And you don't have to say whatever. You can just say half the syllables and whatevs. Or you can just roll your eyes. Oh God, here we go again. Or you could just take a deep breath of disdain. Are you done yet? You could just say that with your face. Are you done giving your lecture yet? Can I just go live my life now? This is لا تصعر خدك للناس. You don't have to disrespect someone by raising your voice and getting angry. You could just dismiss someone and dishonor them. And now that you've dismissed them and you can't hear their voice anymore, their advice anymore, now you're left to your own devices. وَلَا تَمْشِي فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا. He's putting those two things together, perhaps because he understands that when a person stops listening to the advice of others, that's when they become impulsive. So having people in our life that can give us advice, that can give us the benefit of their wisdom, and keeping an open ear and an open heart towards them is an important part of life. And then وَلَا تَمْشِي فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا. This isn't just even spiritual in nature. There are other experiences in life that apply to this. Because even Luqman radiallahu anhu said, لِلنَّاسِ, don't scoff away from people. Like I have non-Muslim friends who were into drugs, alcohol, crime, getting in trouble, you name it, right? And then later on in school, and they hated their teachers, but one teacher decides to give them advice and show them the ropes and say, hey, you're talented in this, maybe you can get a job in this. And that one teacher or that one positive influence, and the person turns their life around, right? Because they didn't turn away from that one teacher. This is لا تساعد خدك للناس. And had they not had that person, they would have been impulsive and doing all kinds of things and ruining their future. And they look back and say, I saved myself, and we look at it as Allah saved this person because they had someone that they could listen to, So this happens in the world, not just in the Muslim sense, but in humanity. This happens. So these are the two bits of advice that he starts off the ayah with. لا تصعر خدك للناس ولا تمشي في الأرض مرحا. Fine. But beyond that, he says, إن الله لا يحب كل مختال فخور. He says, certainly Allah does not love anyone who is mukhtal and fakhur. These are the next two words. By the way, one last comment about probably in the next week we'll do mukhtal and fakhur together because I've taken enough time already. But one last comment about these two words. About the first two words. The first two phrases were turning your face and also being marah. Right? Notice in the first of them, Allah mentioned people. لا تصعر خدك للناس. So people are mentioned. And in the second one, it's not about people, it's all about you. Is وَلَا تَمْشِي فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا? There's no mention of people. Don't walk on the earth with marah, in a state of marah, and there's no mention of people. What's the benefit of knowing that? Allah is telling us a person is at the devil's disposal when they have cut themselves off from good people. The devil's whisper comes from this direction, that direction, and when there's no good people around you, then you are susceptible to this whisper, then that whisper, then that whisper. So the first thing is, don't isolate yourself from good people by dismissing them. That's the first step. And if you are doing that, then you are handing yourself over to the world of evil and negative thoughts that are inside you that can pull you in any direction whenever, especially when you go in the outside world. The strangers that you're going to meet, the people that are going to be in the marketplace, the people that are going to be in the university, on campus, the people that you're going to meet at school, the people that are going to be working with you, those are not necessarily people who care about your well-being. They don't care about your well-being. They care about themselves. But many of them will represent invitations to do something wrong. Right? So those people will have some allure to them, and you'll be drawn towards them, but they don't mean well for you. And you'd rather hang out with people that don't criticize you, so you don't want to be around anyone who keeps it real with you and tells it to you like it is. So people who tell you like it is, you just want to keep your distance from them. You've already, سَعَرْتَ خَدَّكَ لِلنَّاسِ. You've already turned your cheek away from them. Now you become وَلَا تَمْشِي فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا. Then that second bit of advice comes. So it's actually, doesn't matter what a social butterfly you are. It doesn't matter how many online friends you have and how many people know you and how popular you are, or you can make friends anywhere you go. Those kinds of people that are super outgoing and have friends everywhere, watch out, because sometimes their worst connections are the people closest to them. The people closest to them are the ones they dismiss the most, ignore the most. They're so nice outside, so horrible inside. And that's actually, that's a kind of fake life. That's a kind of fake set of connections. And that's actually what's going to be commented on in that last comment where Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ كُلَّ مُخْتَالٍ فَخُورٍ. So we'll wrap up that discussion, inshallah ta'ala, in next khutbah, because I certainly didn't want to rush through these phrases and these ayat, because I think they're of value, and it's something that we should really think about for ourselves and the young people that are listening. I don't want myself or you to hear these words and say, man, I can think of somebody that this applies to 100%. Man, is he talking about and then you're sharing it with your cousin saying, look, here's a khutbah about Bushra, our cousin. Or, look, I think this is about you. Somebody sends and you can use khutbahs for insults with each other. This is about you, I think. You should really listen to it. This is the height of the problem. Because this is you, ironically, scoffing at people, turning your cheek away from people. As if the ayat are about them, a criticism of them, and they have nothing to do with me. I pray Allah allows me to look in the mirror, to find these faults in myself and address them. And I pray Allah allows all of you to look in the mirror and find those faults in yourselves and address them for yourselves. And I pray Allah protects our young generation from these kinds of character flaws and makes them a better example for the world than we could ever be. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim wa nafa'ani wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikri al-Hakim.